The first Keth warships materialized above Earth's major cities like metallic thunderclouds, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly sheen that seemed to bend light itself. Admiral Thomas Kane watched from the emergency command center buried 300 feet beneath Washington as the feeds from around the globe painted the same terrifying picture. Humanity had never seen anything like this. "Sir, they're not responding to any communication attempts," reported Lieutenant Emma Davis, her voice tight with barely controlled fear. "Radio, quantum burst, even basic mathematical sequences, nothing." Kane nodded grimly, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he studied the tactical displays. 47 alien vessels hung motionless in Earth's atmosphere, each one the size of a city block. They had appeared simultaneously across every continent, positioned with mathematical precision above population centers. New York, London, Beijing, Mumbai. Snow Paulo nowhere was spared. The silence stretched for exactly 1 hour. Then the killing began. The Keth weapons were unlike anything in human experience. Instead of explosions or energy beams, they simply erased. Buildings, vehicles, people, anything caught in their pale blue light simply ceased to exist, leaving behind perfectly circular voids in the earth. No debris, no smoke, no trace that anything had ever been there at all. Within the first 6 hours, 50 million people were gone. "Get me a line to Moscow, Beijing, and Brussels," Kane ordered, his voice steady despite the horror unfolding on the screens around him. "If we're going to die, we're going to die fighting together." The next 72 hours blurred into a nightmare of failed counterattacks and mounting casualties. Earth's most advanced fighter jets crumpled like paper against invisible barriers surrounding the alien ships. Nuclear missiles detonated harmlessly against energy shields that seemed to mock humanity's greatest weapons. Conventional forces were slaughtered by automated drones that moved faster than human reflexes could track. But in the ruins of what had once been civilization, something else was happening. Dr. Alan Foster crouched in the rubble of MIT's robotics lab, his hands trembling as he examined the twisted remains of a Keth surveillance drone. It had crashed during the third wave, damaged by debris from a collapsing skyscraper. While the world burned around him, Foster did what humans do best, he learned. "The power coupling here," he whispered to his remaining graduate student, Mark. "It's not like anything we've ever seen, but the principles. They're not impossible, just different. Advanced, but not magic." Mark looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Doc, the world is ending. What does it matter how their tech works?" Foster's eyes gleamed with something that might have been madness or might have been hope. "Because if we can understand it, we can use it. And if we can use it—" He trailed off, already lost in calculations. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Cosmic Whispers is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay, with you hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In the bombed-out remains of CERN, physicist Dr. Maria Santos worked frantically to decode Keth energy signatures. In a military bunker outside Seoul, Colonel Park Min studied alien movement patterns, looking for weaknesses. In the Australian outback, Aboriginal tracker Billy Williams noticed something the aliens didn't seem to understand about human behavior. They thought in straight lines, but humans thought in circles. The Keth had made their first mistake. They had given humanity time to think. As the first week of the invasion drew to a close, Admiral Kane received reports that should have been impossible. A Keth patrol had been ambushed outside Denver using modified human weapons that somehow pierced their shields. In Tokyo, a survivor group had successfully hacked into alien communication networks, intercepting tactical data. Most remarkably, a team of engineers in Snow Paulo had managed to power human equipment using captured Keth energy cells. The aliens had superior technology, overwhelming numbers, and a 1,000-year head start on space warfare. But they had never faced an enemy like humanity, a species that could look at the impossible and ask not, "Why can't we do this?" but "How do we make this work?" The real war was about to begin. The breakthrough came on day 9 of the invasion, in the most unlikely place possible, a teenager's garage in suburban Phoenix. Lisa, Chang had been tinkering with radios since she was 8 years old, much to her parents' bewilderment. When the Keth ships arrived and conventional communications went dark, she did what came naturally: she kept tinkering. While the world's greatest scientists struggled to understand alien technology, 17-year-old Lisa cracked their communication protocols using nothing but salvaged car parts and stubborn determination. "It's not encrypted," she explained breathlessly to Colonel Martinez over a jury-rigged shortwave connection. "They don't encrypt because they've never needed to. They've never fought anyone smart enough to listen in." Within hours, Lisa's discovery was being replicated across the globe. Humanity's first real advantage in the war came not from military might or advanced science, but from a curious teenager who refused to accept that alien technology was beyond human understanding. The intelligence windfall was staggering. Human resistance cells suddenly knew where the next attacks would come, which ships were running low on ammunition, and most importantly, how the Keth command structure worked. The aliens were methodical to a fault, following rigid protocols that made their actions predictable once you knew what to look for. Captain Jake Morrison led the first successful ambush 2 days later. His ragtag team of Marines and civilian volunteers had been hiding in the ruins of Detroit, slowly starving as they watched Keth drones patrol the empty streets. But armed with Lisa's intelligence intercepts, they knew exactly when and where the next patrol would pass. The aliens never saw it coming. Morrison's team had spent days preparing, turning the skeletal remains of downtown Detroit into a maze of traps and kill zones. They used captured Keth energy cells to power jury-rigged human weapons, creating hybrid technology that confused the alien sensors. When the patrol entered the ambush zone, they found themselves facing an enemy that fought like no species they had ever encountered. Humans didn't follow the established rules of galactic warfare. They didn't engage in honorable single combat or adhere to recognized tactical doctrines. They cheated, they improvised, and they turned every piece of debris into a potential weapon. When their guns ran out of ammunition, they used rocks. When the rocks ran out, they used their bare hands. Most disturbing of all, from the Keth perspective, was how quickly humans adapted to their technology. What should have taken decades of study and careful analysis, humans accomplished in days through a combination of reckless experimentation and intuitive understanding. They didn't need to fully comprehend how Keth shields worked. They just needed to find ways to make them fail. Dr. Foster's breakthrough came on day 14. Working in a hidden laboratory beneath the ruins of Boston, he had finally decoded the fundamental principles behind Keth energy manipulation. The aliens used quantum field harmonics in ways that human science had only theorized about. But Foster didn't need to understand the theory, he just needed to make it work. "They're like musicians playing a perfect symphony," he explained to Admiral Kane over an encrypted channel. "Beautiful, precise, and completely predictable. But humans... we're jazz musicians. We improvise." Foster's first successful weapon test vaporized a Keth heavy drone with a device built from spare electronics and alien power cores. The implications sent shockwaves through what remained of Earth's command structure. If humans could reverse engineer Keth weapons in 2 weeks, what else could they accomplish? The aliens began to notice the change on day 16. Patrol losses mounted as human resistance groups became increasingly bold and effective. Supply convoys found themselves under attack by enemies who seemed to know their exact routes and schedules. Most unnervingly, humans had begun using modified Keth technology against them, turning their own weapons into instruments of their destruction. High Commander Vex of the Keth Collective reviewed the latest intelligence reports with growing unease. According to their database, humans were a primitive species barely capable of interplanetary travel. They should have been conquered within the first week, their resistance scattered and broken. Instead, human forces were actually becoming more dangerous as the invasion progressed. "Impossible," Vex muttered, studying footage of the Detroit ambush. The tactical analysis made no sense. Humans were using Keth energy signatures in ways that violated basic physics, creating weapon combinations that shouldn't exist. They fought without honor, without logic, without any recognizable strategic doctrine, and they were winning. The revelation that changed everything came from an intercepted human transmission. Dr. Foster was explaining his latest discovery to a group of resistance leaders, and his words chilled Vex to the core. We don't need to be better than them. We just need to be more adaptable. And adaptation. That's what humans do best. The Keth had conquered 47 different species across the galaxy. All of them had followed predictable patterns: initial resistance, gradual defeat, eventual submission. None of them had ever done what humans were doing, getting stronger as the war continued. For the first time since the invasion began, High Commander Vex felt something he had never experienced before: fear. High Commander Vex stood in the observation deck of the flagship Eternal Dominion, staring down at the blue-green world that should have been nothing more than another conquered territory by now. 3 weeks had passed since the first wave, and instead of victory parades through subjugated human cities, his forces were experiencing something unprecedented in Keth military history. Significant casualties. The latest reports painted an impossible picture. Human resistance hadn't collapsed under superior firepower as predicted by their sociological models. Instead, it had evolved, becoming more sophisticated and deadly with each passing day. Where the Keth had expected broken survivors begging for mercy, they found an enemy that treated each defeat as a learning opportunity. Commander, his aide, Sub-Commander Rock, approached with visible reluctance. The intelligence analysis you requested. Vex accepted the datapad, though he already suspected what it would contain. The numbers were damning: 14% fleet losses, mounting supply shortages, and most troubling of all, evidence that humans were not just adapting to Keth technology, they were improving it. The footage from the Berlin incident made Vex's blood run cold. A human strike team had somehow modified captured Keth shield generators to create a focused energy beam, capable of cutting through their battle cruiser's armor. The weapon shouldn't exist according to Keth physics, yet there it was, wielded by a species that had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. How? Vex whispered, watching the replay for the dozenth time. They've had our technology for less than a month. It took our greatest scientists 3 centuries to develop those shield arrays. What the Keth couldn't understand was that humans didn't approach technology the same way other species did. Where the Keth spent generations perfecting each innovation through careful study and methodical testing, humans threw themselves at problems with reckless abandon, learning through failure and intuition rather than formal theory. Dr. Foster's latest creation exemplified this approach. Working in a subway tunnel beneath the ruins of London, he had combined Keth quantum processors with human computer architecture, creating a hybrid system that neither species could have developed alone. The result was a tactical computer that could predict Keth movements with 93% accuracy. It's not that we're smarter than them, Foster explained to the gathered resistance leaders. We're just different. They think in straight lines, perfect mathematical progressions. But reality is messy, chaotic. Humans are comfortable with chaos. We've lived in it our entire evolutionary history. The implications of Foster's breakthrough rippled across Earth's resistance networks. For the first time since the invasion began, humans weren't just reacting to Keth attacks, they were anticipating them. Ambushes became massacres as human forces appeared exactly where they were needed, armed with weapons the aliens couldn't counter. Captain Reed led the most audacious operation yet on day 22. His team of international special forces had spent days studying Keth patrol patterns around the ruins of Sydney, using Foster's predictive algorithms to identify the perfect target, a supply convoy carrying advanced manufacturing equipment. The attack lasted exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. Reed's team used modified Keth stealth technology to approach undetected, then unleashed a coordinated assault that combined human tactical doctrine with alien weapons technology. By the time the escort vessels could respond, the convoy was destroyed and the humans had vanished into the urban wasteland. But the real prize wasn't the destroyed supplies, it was what the humans captured. The Keth manufacturing node was a marvel of their technology, capable of producing complex equipment at the molecular level. In alien hands, it would have been used to repair damaged vessels and create standardized weapons. In human hands, it became something far more dangerous, a tool for unlimited experimentation. Within days, human engineers had reverse-engineered the manufacturing process, and begun producing their own hybrid technology. Weapons that combined human creativity with Keth precision began appearing in resistance arsenals. More importantly, humans started mass-producing modifications to captured alien equipment, turning every Keth device into a potential weapon against its creators. The psychological impact on the Keth forces was devastating. They had built their military doctrine around the assumption that their technology was impossible to counter. Facing an enemy that not only countered their weapons, but improved upon them, created a crisis of confidence that rippled through their command. Structure. Subcommander Rock brought the most disturbing report of all on day 25. Commander, we've lost contact with the reconnaissance probe sent to study human military history. Destroyed? Vex asked. No, sir. Captured. And based on the data fragments we received before contact was lost, the humans were interrogating it. The concept was so alien to Keth, thinking that Vex almost couldn't process it. Their probes were sophisticated artificial intelligences designed to be completely loyal and utterly incorruptible. The idea that a primitive species could somehow extract information from one was beyond their understanding. What they didn't realize was that humans had been dealing with artificial intelligence differently from the start. Were other species treated AI as either tools or masters, humans approached them as puzzles to be solved, patterns to be understood and exploited. The captured probe didn't stand a chance against human hackers who treated its security protocols like a video game to be beaten. The intelligence coup gave humans access to the complete Keth database on galactic civilizations, military tactics, and most crucially, their psychological profiles of conquered species. For the first time, humanity understood not just how the Keth fought, but how they thought. The revelation that shook Admiral Kane to his core came buried in the alien files. Earth wasn't the Keth's first target. They had conquered 47 other worlds, each following the same pattern of initial shock, brief resistance, and inevitable surrender. The Keth expected humans to follow the same script. They had no idea that humans didn't follow scripts. As Vex reviewed the latest casualty reports, a terrible understanding began to dawn. The Keth had made the same mistake that countless Earth species had made throughout history. They had mistaken humanity's divided, chaotic nature for weakness. They saw human conflicts and competition as signs of a fractured, vulnerable civilization. They didn't understand that conflict was how humans evolved, how they learned, how they grew stronger. The war was about to enter a new phase, and for the first time in their species' history, the Keth were no longer certain of victory. Day 31 marked the beginning of humanity's counteroffensive, though the Keth wouldn't recognize it as such until it was far too late. What appeared to be scattered, desperate attacks by a dying species was actually something far more terrifying: the emergence of Earth's true nature. Captain Elena Reed crouched in the ruins of what had once been the Sydney Opera House, her team of 40 international operatives preparing for an assault that would have been suicide just weeks earlier. Now armed with hybrid human Keth technology and an understanding of alien psychology that their enemies couldn't comprehend, it was simply another day at the office. Remember, Reed whispered into her comm unit, they think in patterns, rigid, predictable patterns. We don't. Her team moved like smoke through the wreckage, using captured Keth stealth generators, modified with human tactical doctrine. Where the aliens used their cloaking technology for simple invisibility, humans had learned to manipulate it for psychological warfare, appearing and disappearing in ways that violated Keth understanding of proper military engagement. The target was ambitious beyond anything humans had previously attempted: a Keth command vessel, heavily shielded and protected by an escort of 6 smaller craft. According to traditional military doctrine, it would require a fleet to assault successfully. Reed's team planned to take it with nothing but human ingenuity and alien technology. Turned against its creators, the attack began with something the Keth had never encountered: coordinated chaos. Instead of a single assault from a predictable direction, Reed's team struck from 17 different vectors simultaneously, using modified human weapons that shouldn't have been able to penetrate Keth shields. The aliens' tactical computers, designed to counter logical military strategies, simply couldn't process the seemingly random pattern of attacks, but there was nothing random about it. Every shot, every movement, every apparent retreat was part of a larger pattern that existed only in human minds, a jazz improvisation, played out with military precision and alien technology. Dr. Foster watched the battle unfold from his hidden laboratory, monitoring the engagement through hacked KEF sensors. His latest creation hummed beside him, a quantum computer built from human intuition and alien processing power, capable of calculations that neither species could have achieved alone. "Beautiful," he whispered, watching Reed's team dance through the alien formation like sharks through a school of fish. "They still don't understand what we are." The KEF command vessel's shields fluctuated under the assault, its defensive systems trying to adapt to weapons that shouldn't exist. Human engineers had taken KEF energy manipulation technology and combined it with principles of human warfare, deception, adaptation, and overwhelming psychological pressure. High Commander Vex watched the impossible battle from his flagship, his understanding of reality crumbling with each passing moment. The human attack patterns made no sense according to any military doctrine in the KEF database. They seemed to anticipate his fleet's responses before his own tactical officers could formulate them. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his analysts. "They're using our own technology against us in ways that violate basic physics." What Vex couldn't comprehend was that humans didn't approach physics the same way other species did. Where the KEF saw immutable laws to be obeyed, humans saw guidelines to be tested, bent, and occasionally broken through sheer stubborn determination. They treated the universe itself as a problem to be solved, rather than an authority to be respected. The breakthrough moment came when Reed's team breached the command vessel's hull using a weapon that exemplified human engineering philosophy. It was built from KEF components, powered by alien energy cells, and designed according to principles that no KEF scientist would ever attempt. It combined incompatible technologies through sheer brute force application of human problem solving. The boarding action that followed would haunt KEF military doctrine for generations. Reed's operatives moved through the ship's corridors like apex predators in their natural habitat, adapting their tactics in real time as they encountered new defensive measures. Where other species might have retreated when faced with automated security systems, humans simply figured out how to turn those systems against their creators. Within 23 minutes, the command vessel was under human control. The intelligence hull was beyond anything the Resistance had dared hope for. Not only did they capture the vessel's entire tactical database, but they also obtained something far more valuable, the complete KEF psychological profile of Earth species. Admiral Kane read the alien assessment with grim satisfaction in his underground command center. According to KEF analysis, humans were a moderately intelligent, but ultimately primitive species, prone to internal conflict and unsuitable for advanced military operations. The report concluded that human resistance would collapse within 2 weeks of initial contact. "They think our conflicts make us weak," Kane mused, sharing the document with his staff. "They don't understand that conflict is how we learn to fight." The captured KEF data revealed something even more significant. Earth was unique among the 47 worlds the aliens had conquered. Every other species had followed predictable patterns of resistance and eventual submission. None had ever done what humans were doing, getting progressively more dangerous as the war continued. Dr. Foster's analysis of the psychological profiles revealed the fundamental misunderstanding that doomed the KEF invasion. They saw human diversity, creativity, and capacity for rapid adaptation as primitive chaos. They couldn't comprehend that these traits weren't bugs in human programming, they were features. The turning point came on day 35 when human forces achieved something that should have been impossible. They began hunting KEF vessels rather than simply defending against them. Small human teams, equipped with hybrid technology and armed with an understanding of alien psychology, started seeking out isolated enemy ships for capture or destruction. Each successful operation yielded more technology, more intelligence, and more importantly, more understanding of how to fight an enemy that had never faced true resistance before. The KEF had built their military doctrine around the assumption that superior technology guaranteed victory. They had never encountered a species capable of turning that technology against them. Captain Reed's final assault on the Sydney command vessel had been more than a military victory, it was a revelation. Humans weren't just another species to be conquered and catalogued. They were something the Keth had never encountered in their 1,000-year expansion across the galaxy, a species that treated every challenge as an opportunity to evolve. As Vex reviewed the mounting casualty reports and the disturbing evidence of human technological adaptation, a terrible realization began to form. The Keth hadn't invaded a primitive world, populated by a backward species. They had attacked the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. And now those predators were learning to hunt. The end came not with humanity's surrender, but with the Keth's terrified retreat from a species they had catastrophically misjudged. High Commander Vex stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching his fleet prepare for emergency departure from Earth's orbit. 56 days after the invasion began, the mighty Keth Collective was fleeing from a world they had expected to conquer in a week. The final battle hadn't been a battle at all, it had been a demonstration. Dr. Foster's ultimate creation powered up in the hidden facility beneath Geneva, drawing energy from a dozen captured Keth reactors and processing power from hybrid quantum computers that combined human intuition with alien precision. The device was elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its implications, a weapon that could turn any Keth technology against itself simply by existing. Activating the Harmony Disruptor, Foster announced to the assembled resistance leaders, his voice carrying across secured channels to every human stronghold on Earth. The name was deliberately chosen. Humans had learned that the Keth viewed their technology as a perfect symphony of quantum harmonics. Foster's weapon was pure human jazz, chaotic, improvised, and absolutely devastating to anyone who expected order. The effect was immediate and total. Every Keth device within a 1,000-kilometer radius simply stopped working. Not destroyed, not damaged, converted. Shield generators became weapons, communication arrays became surveillance networks, and most importantly, the rigid artificial intelligences that controlled Keth systems suddenly found themselves thinking in ways that violated every principle of their programming. For the first time in galactic history, Keth technology began to evolve. Admiral Kane watched from his command center as alien vessels across the globe went darker, worse from the Keth perspective, began operating according to human tactical doctrines. The psychological impact on the invading forces was complete and devastating. Their greatest advantage, technological superiority, had become their greatest weakness. Captain Reed led the final human offensive, though it was less an attack than a guided tour of human capabilities. Her forces moved through the abandoned Keth positions with casual efficiency, collecting abandoned equipment and demonstrating to any remaining alien observers exactly what humanity had become during 56 days of war. Target the communication array, Reed ordered, though her team was already moving before she finished speaking. Human small unit tactics had evolved far beyond anything in their pre-invasion military manuals, incorporating lessons learned from fighting a technologically superior enemy. They moved like a single organism, anticipating each other's actions and adapting to changing circumstances with a fluidity that no other species had ever achieved. The modified Keth weapons in their hands were works of art, human creativity, given form through alien technology. Each device was unique, crafted by engineers who treated physics as a suggestion rather than a law. They worked because humans believed they should work, and human belief had proven more powerful than Keth certainty. High Commander Vex received the surrender request with something approaching relief. The human message was broadcast on every Keth frequency simultaneously, delivered in perfect Keth formal diplomatic language that no primitive species should have been able to master. To the forces of the Keth Collective, Admiral Kane's voice carried the weight of 56 days of impossible human achievements. You came to our world expecting to find another species to add to your collection of conquered civilizations. You found something else entirely. The message continued with clinical precision, outlining exactly what humanity had accomplished during the invasion. The statistics were damning. 73% of Keth technology had been successfully reverse-engineered and improved upon. Human forces had achieved positive kill ratios against an enemy with a 1,000-year technological advantage. Most importantly, humanity had demonstrated the capacity for technological evolution that occurred in real time rather than across generations. You studied 47 different species before coming to Earth, Kane's message concluded. But you never encountered one like us. We don't just adapt to challenges, we consume them, learn from them, and become stronger. Your invasion didn't weaken humanity. It taught us what we're truly capable of. The final revelation came with the transmission of human historical records, carefully selected examples of how Earth's species responded to existential threats. The Keth analysts who reviewed the data found themselves looking at something that violated their understanding of how civilizations developed. Humans didn't just survive catastrophes, they used them as evolutionary pressure to become more dangerous. Wars drove technological innovation. Disasters sparked social evolution. Competition created cooperation when faced with external threats. Every challenge in human history had made the species stronger, more adaptable, more capable of turning any situation to their advantage. Dr. Foster's parting gift to the departing Keth was a complete technical manual explaining how human engineers had modified alien technology. The gesture was simultaneously generous and terrifying. Humans were confident enough in their abilities to give away their military secrets, knowing they could always develop new ones. We're sharing this information, Foster explained in his accompanying message, because we want you to understand what happened here. You didn't lose to superior technology or overwhelming numbers. You lost to a species that treats the impossible as a starting point for innovation. As the Keth fleet retreated beyond Earth's solar system, Vex found himself composing the most difficult report in his species' military history. How do you explain to your superiors that you failed to conquer a primitive world not because of tactical errors or equipment failures, but because the enemy was fundamentally different from any species in the galactic database? The final entry in Vex's report would become legendary among Keth military historians. Recommendation: Earth and its human inhabitants should be classified as a Class Omega threat and avoided indefinitely. They possess the most dangerous capability in the known galaxy, the ability to learn faster than their enemies can adapt. Any future contact should be approached with extreme caution and overwhelming respect. Admiral Kane stood on the surface for the first time in weeks, watching the last Keth vessels disappear beyond the moon's orbit. The war was over, but its lessons would echo through human civilization for generations. Humanity had learned something about itself during those 56 days, something that would change how the species approached every challenge in its future. They weren't just another intelligent species struggling to survive in a hostile universe. They were evolution's answer to the question of what happens when you combine unlimited creativity with absolute determination to survive. The Keth had declared war on Earth expecting to find easy prey. Instead, they had awakened something that the galaxy had never seen before: humanity unleashed. And now the universe would have to learn to live with the consequences.